Money is an essential part of a man's life. It helps us satisfy our needs and achieve our wants. But how do we use our hard-earned money? When we have enough money, we can save it if we put it into an investment in banks or insurance so that in time, it can grow with a higher value. But if we are in need, we get money from loans or from borrowing it from lending institutions. In this video, we will learn one of the vital concepts in financial transactions that we need to familiarize, especially in lending and borrowing money. Listen as we discuss the concept of simple interest. Before we discuss real-life problems that will help us understand the concept of simple interest better, let us discuss first these terms that we will be encountering as we go on with our lesson. First is the simple interest with the symbol of IS. This is the interest which is computed on the principal and on the accumulated past interests. Then, the lender or the creditor. The lender or the creditor can be a person or an institution who invests or lends money. They are the persons who provide us the funds which is available for us to borrow. And we have the borrower or the debtor. It is a person or an institution who owes the money or avails the funds from the lender. Here are the terms that we need to master when we are going to solve simple interest problems. We have the principal or the big P. This is the amount of money borrowed or invested on the origin date. Then we have the rate or small r, the annual rate charged by the lender or the rate of increase of the investment. And then we have the time or term with the symbol of small t. This is the amount of time in years the money is borrowed or invested, or the length of time between the origin and the maturity dates. We also have the origin or the loan date. This is the date on which money is received by the borrower. The repayment date or the maturity date is the date on which the money borrowed or loaned is to be completely repaid. And finally, we have the maturity value or the future value. This is the amount the lender receives from the borrower on the maturity date. In the concept of lending and borrowing money, there are only two types of person. The lender, the one who has the money, and the borrower, the one who needs the money. Now, in financial transactions, an interest is the amount paid by a borrower to a lender for the use of money over a period. The interest that is paid as a percent of amount borrowed or invested is called the simple interest. Interest is defined as free of money or goods invested, as share or percentage of the lender or depositor who invested or deposited a certain interest rate and at a given period of time serves as incentive to him. The principal amount or goods invested must be returned to the lender or depositor plus the interest as share or free. As humans, money is part of our daily lives, and it is a common practice to borrow money to buy an asset. Others borrow money to set up a business. Lending money is meant to benefit both the lender and the borrower. The lender benefits by receiving a fee called interest from the borrower's use of the money lent. The borrower benefits too by availing of money that can be used for investment, production of goods, or even consumption. Like what was mentioned earlier, the date on which borrowed money is received by the borrower is called the origin date. The date on which loan is to be completely repaid is called the repayment or maturity date. The length of time between the origin and the maturity date is called the term of the loan. When you borrow or you lend money, there are only two types of computations. It can either be computed with a simple interest or a compound interest. The compound interest can be discussed later on. This time, we will be focusing on simple interest. Interest that is computed based only on the amount received by the borrower on origin date is called the simple interest. Thus, at simple interest, the interest earned each year is constant. Such interest depends on these three factors. First is the principal. The principal, or big P, commonly expressed in currency, is the sum received by the borrower on origin date. Simply put, this is the amount of money that is borrowed by the borrower from the lender. The principal is any amount of money that can be expressed in various currencies depending on which country you're in. In the case of us in the Philippines, our currency is in the Philippine peso. Then we have the rate. The simple interest rate, expressed as small r and in percent commonly, is the annual rate set by the lender and is to be computed on P. Then finally, we have the term, or the time of the loan, which is in the symbol of letter T. This is expressed in years, which is the time between the origin and maturity dates. Sometimes, the term cannot reach a year. That is why, if it is in months, it is to be computed such that the number of months is divided by 12, which is the total number of months in 1 year. To make it easy for us to solve simple interest problems, we will be guided by the following formulas. Here is the formula in solving the simple interest. We have capital I is equal to capital P R T, or shall we say, the interest is equal to the principal amount times the rate times the term, where IS stands for the interest earned or owed, S because it is in simple interest, P is the principal amount invested or borrowed, R is the annual rate of interest, and T, which stands for the term or time frame in years. Now we know that in solving for the simple interest, all we need to do is just to follow the formula I equals PRT, where the interest is determined by multiplying the values of the principal, the rate, and the term. But sometimes, there are cases when we are asked to find the value for either the principal, or the rate, or the term. Now, how do we do that? All we have to do is just to follow this mnemonic device using the triangle. You can see that inside the triangle, we have the I, or the interest, on this part right here. And below that, we have the P, R, and T. Now, if we are looking for the value of the principal, all we have to do is just to divide I by the product of the rate and the term. So we have the formula P equals I divided by RT. Now, if we are given the interest, the principal, and the term, and we are asked to find the value of the rate, all we have to do is just to divide the interest by the product of the principal and the term. Then we have the formula R equals I divided by P times T. And finally, if we are asked to determine the term for a loan or an investment, all we have to do is just to divide the value of I by the product of P and R. Then, we have the formula T equals I divided by the product of P and R. For us to understand the concept of simple interest better, here are some examples. Example number 1. Suppose Francis wanted to invest an amount for 2 years at a financial institution that gives a simple interest of 3% per year. The interest rate was given to Francis by the financial institution on the assumption that he cannot withdraw the investment within the 2-year period. How much is Francis's earning on the investment of 50,000 pesos after the 2-year period? Now you can see that in this problem, the terms 2 years, 3%, and 50,000 pesos are in bold case and highlighted in the font colored blue. Now, The key for us to solve this problem is for us to identify the different given so that we will be able to solve this one easily. Here's the solution for example number 1. The following can be obtained from the problem. We have the principal or P, which is equal to 50,000 pesos, and the R, which is 0.03. How did we obtain 0.03? If you can remember, the rate from the problem is 3%. We need to convert first the 3% into its decimal form so that we will be able to solve it easily. To do that, all you have to do is just to divide 3 by 100, and then you can get 0.03. Okay, so I'll show you. We have the 3% can be converted into decimal by having 3 divided by 100. Okay, and then you will get 0.03. And finally, we have the term which is equal to 2, or 2 years. Then, since we are asked about the interest for this particular problem, then we have the formula IS is equal to PRT, or the principal times the rate times the time. Then substituting the values of the PR and T, we have principal is 50,000 pesos times the rate, which is 0.03, and times 2, which is the term. Then we have 3,000. Therefore, from this, we could conclude that the investment earned 3,000 pesos. Interest can be viewed as a lender or a borrower. Sometimes, if we are the investor, we consider the value of our investment after a given period. In this case, we introduce the concept of future values or accumulated values or maturity value. Here are the formulas for computing the future value. We actually have two formulas. The first one is F equals P plus I. The second one is F equals P times 1 plus RT. Now, when are we going to use the first formula or the second formula? We can use the first formula if we are looking for the future value given the principal and the interest. And then we're going to use the second formula if we are looking for the future value given the principal, the rate, and the term. You know already what these letters stand for. Let us try to solve a problem involving the future value in the second example. May wants to borrow 40,000 pesos from a bank that gives an annual interest rate of 4.5%. However, she only wants to borrow the fund for a 9-month period and will be able to pay the bank immediately after 9 months. How much interest is she going to pay from borrowing the amount of money? What is the accumulated value of the amount borrowed after the 9-month period? Now, we have a condition here. Our term is only on a 9-month period. That means it does not reach a year. And then, we are also asked about the accumulated value of the amount borrowed after the 9th month. Since we have the term accumulated value, therefore we are asked about the future value of the amount that is borrowed by May. And that is what we're going to solve. Here's the solution for example number 2. The following can be obtained from the problem. We have our principal is 40,000 pesos. Our rate is 0.045. How did we get that? We get that by dividing 4.5 by 100. Again, this is what we did. We have 4.5 divided by 100. And then we get 0.045. And then how did we get the term which is 0.75? Take note that the term for the amount borrowed by May is only for 9 months. She will be able to pay it already. And then since it does not reach a year, then we are going to count the number of months and divide it by 12. Why 12? It is because we only have 12 months in a year. Therefore, to get the term, we need to divide 9 by 12, and then we have 0.75. Okay. Now, let's continue. We are going to solve for the interest by multiplying the P, R, and T. Then we have the principal is 40,000 pesos times the rate, which is 0.045, times the term, which is 0.75. Then multiplying all of that, we get 1,350. From this, we could conclude that the interest due is 1,350 pesos. Since we already have solved for the interest of the amount borrowed by May, then let's solve for the future value. We have the formula F equals P plus IS. Why did we use this formula for the future value? That is because we already have our principal amount and we already solved for the interest. And we have the principal is 40,000 pesos. Then we added the interest, which is 1,350 pesos, which is the total interest accumulated from the 9-month term. Then adding that, we get 41,350. In this example, the accumulated value of the amount borrowed is F equals P plus IS. That is the sum of the principal amount or the amount borrowed and the interest. Thus, after 9 months, May will pay the bank 41,350 pesos. Then we have a different scenario for example number 3. What is the simple interest rate applied if an investment of 37,500 pesos accumulates to 41,812 pesos and 50 cents in the period of 5 years? Now, let us identify first the given. We have here 37,500 pesos. This stands for our principal. Then we have a period of 5 years. That means 5 years is our term. Since there's this term accumulates to, that means 41,812 pesos and 50 centavos is the future value of the amount after 5 years. Now, what is asked in the problem? We are going to identify the simple interest rate applied in this particular problem. Now, that is what we're going to solve. Here's the solution for example number 3. We note that the interest earned by the investment is 4,312 pesos and 50 centavos. How did we get this value? We derived this by subtracting the principal amount from the future value of the investment after the term. That is, we have 41,812 and 50 cents minus 37,500. Then we have 50 cents, 2, 1, 3, and then we have 4. So, by subtracting the future value by the principal amount, we get 4,312 pesos and 50 cents. And this is actually the interest earned by the investment after 5 years. Now, given this data, we can use the formula I equals PRT. Then we have R equals I divided by PT. Since we are asked by the simple interest rate, then using the values of I, P, and T, we substitute. I is 4,312 pesos and 50 cents divided by P is 37,500 times the T, which is 5. Then we have 0.023. Now, since this is in decimal form, we are going to convert this into a percent form. And we can do that by multiplying 0.023 by 100. After multiplying this, we will get 2.3, and then we will just have to add the percent symbol. Therefore, the simple interest rate for this particular problem is 2.3%. Now we have example number 4. The repayment on a loan was 16,275 pesos. If the loan was for 15 months or 1.25 years at 6.8% interest a year, how much was the principal? In this particular problem, we are asked to solve for the principal amount in the beginning of the loan. Now, to solve this, all we have to do is just to interpret the given data, which are colored blue. Let's start with this one. We have 16,275 pesos is labeled as the repayment on a loan. Since we have the term repayment, that means 16,275 pesos is our future value. And then we have 15 months or 1.25 years, which is our term. Now, how did we get 1.25 years out of 15 months? All we did was to divide 15 by 12. 12 because there are 12 months in a year. Dividing 15 by 12, then we get 1.25. You can do the math for verification. Then finally, we have 6.8% interest a year. Obviously, this one is our R. Now, since we will be solving this problem with our rate in decimal form, then we will have to convert 6.8% into its decimal form. And we can do that by dividing 6.8 by 100. So we have 6.8 divided by 100. Then we get 0.068. Okay, so our rate is 0.068. Here's the solution for example number 4. Based from the given, we have the following. Future value is 16,275. Our rate, which we converted from 6.8%, is 0.068. And the term which we converted from 15 months is 1.25 years. Since the future value is equal to P times 1 plus RT, then we have this formula. The principal is equal to the future value divided by 1 plus the rate times the term. Why are we going to use this formula? That is because we are looking for the principal given the values of the future value, the rate, and the term. Therefore, this is the formula which is the most convenient to use in solving for this type of problem. Now, substituting the values of F, R, and T, we have F is 16,275 divided by 1 plus 0.068 times 1.25. In solving, we are going to multiply first the rate and the term, and whatever the product is, we are going to add it to 1. Then afterwards, we will divide 16,275 by the sum of 1 and the product of the rate and the term. After doing this process, we will get our answer, which is 15,000 pesos. Therefore, the principal amount is 15,000 pesos. Now we are down to our last example. Carlo borrowed 75,000 pesos from the bank at 3.5% simple annual interest. If by the end of the loan term he paid 5,250 pesos total interest, what is the term of Carlos' loan? In this problem, we are asked to identify the term of Carlos' loan. Now, we can solve this by interpreting the given data in blue text. Let's start with 75,000 pesos. This is the amount that Carlo borrowed from the bank. Therefore, 75,000 pesos is our principal. Then we have 3.5%, which is obviously the rate of our loan. Now, as I have told you earlier, we need to convert the rate from percent into its decimal form so that it is easier for us to solve. And I also told you that we can do that by dividing the number in percent form by 100 so that we can get its decimal form. But there is another way. To get the decimal form of 3.5, all you have to do is just to move 2 places from the decimal form from the decimal point leftwards. So we have 1 and then 2. Then, after moving, we have here our new decimal point, and we will just have to add zeros here. Therefore, our rate is 0.035. And then we have 5,250 pesos, which is the total interest. Therefore, this is now our IS. Here's the solution for example number 5. Based from the given, we have the following data. Our principal is 75,000 pesos. Our rate, which we converted from 3.5%, is 0.035. And our interest is 5,250. Since the term is equal to the interest divided by the product of the principal and rate, then we have T is equal to I divided by P times R. Substituting the values that are given right here, we have I is 5,250 divided by the principal is 75,000 pesos and the rate is 0.035. Multiplying 75,000 by 0.035, whatever the product is, we will divide it from 5,250. Then we will get 2. Therefore, the loan term for this loan of Carlo is 2 years. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you learned something from the concept of simple interest. If you wanted to keep in touch and you wanted to learn more about mathematics, please click like and subscribe to my channel.